John Liver-Eating Johnson. In 1847, after Crow warriors killed his Flathead tribe wife, John Johnson embarked on a legendary vendetta. He reportedly killed and scalped over 300 Crow Indians, allegedly consuming their livers, earning him the gruesome nickname that defined his frontier legend. Albida, the Taos Pueblo woman, warrior bride in New Mexico, circa 1914. There she sits gracefully in a fringed garment embroidered with delicate beads. Her reflective gaze and composed posture convey a quiet dignity and unspoken resolve. Train robber Tom Blackjack Ketchum stands on the gallows before his 1901 execution, the only hanging in Union County, New Mexico Territory's history. The botched execution used an excessively long rope, resulting in decapitation. His final words, "Goodbye, please dig my grave very deep. All right, hurry up." This lady hunter is posing in a pretty bold way for those days, holding her regular Winchester Model 1892 lever-action repeating rifle. She's wearing a wide-brimmed hat, sailor-style top, and a skirt, quite the daring look back then for someone out hunting. William Alexander Anderson Bigfoot Wallace was a colorful Texas frontier character, backwoodsman, folk hero, soldier, and eventually Texas Ranger captain. His extraordinary frontier skills and imposing presence made him a legendary figure whose exploits continue to symbolize the rugged individualism of the early Texas frontier. A true girl of the West, Del Rio, Texas, 1906, proudly embodied the spirit of the American West. Often mistaken for Annie Oakley, her confident stance and attire reflect the frontier's rugged charm. Curly was a handsome 17-year-old when he witnessed the fall of Custer at the Little Bighorn. As a scout for Custer, he was in close proximity to the fighting, but was not engaged in it. Although he was one of the first to report what happened, he spoke no English and communicated what he saw in sign language. Buck Taylor, known as the King of Cowboys, wears his distinctive Wild West showman attire. His exceptional skills in writing and lasso handling helped popularize and romanticize the cowboy image in American culture. This photograph of Belle Starr, taken in 1886, portrays the infamous figure of the Wild West on her horse in the Indian Territory. Known as the Bandit Queen, Belle had connections with outlaws such as Cole Younger and Jesse James. In 1889, she was mysteriously murdered, a crime that was never solved, solidifying her place in history as one of the West's most intriguing figures. Kit Carson, an iconic figure of the Wild West, was a fur trapper, guide for John Fremont's expeditions, and an Indian agent. He mediated relations between Native Americans and settlers, but also participated in the Navajo Long Walk. His ability to survive in the wild and his courage and dangerous challenges solidified his legend in American history. 3 cattle rustlers from the Kinney Gang who terrorized New Mexico in the 1870s pose formally with their weapons. Standing in the middle, John Kinney, a former cavalry sergeant, maintained a ranch near Mesilla that served as the notorious headquarters and rendezvous point for regional outlaws. A typical cowboy from Caldwell, Kansas, wearing genuine cowhide chaps in 1880s. Depending on their work environment, cowboys wore all types of chaps: shotgun, Texas wing, batwing. Most were made of cowhide, but in the colder north, many were made of sheepskin or goat hide, with the fur intact. A former U.S. Army scout, Bat Masterson, gained renown as a courageous, deadshot Western sheriff who famously ran the bad men the hell out of Dodge. Working alongside Wyatt Earp in Dodge City, he formed one of the West's legendary law enforcement partnerships. Known as the Thorny Rose, Laura Bullion joined Butch Cassidy's Wild Bunch at age 15 after working in Madame Fanny Porter's brothel. A master of disguise, she helped the gang sell stolen goods, forge signatures, and gather supplies before her 1901 arrest and 5-year prison sentence. Tiburcio Vasquez was one of the most notorious Hispanic outlaws. He had a 20-year career of stagecoach holdups, robberies, and cattle rustling before his 1875 hanging. This 1865 photograph captures the man whose exploits became legendary among both Hispanic and Anglo populations throughout California. This early 1880s photo shows Boss Caswell posing outside his Monkey Saloon in Granite, Colorado, where Denver beer is just 5 cents a glass. A dog demonstrates his support for this local business. The Black Hills Stage in Deadwood, 1883, represents one end of the stagecoach route between Cheyenne, Wyoming, and Deadwood. Horses stand hitched outside the First National Bank on Deadwood's dusty main street, capturing the transportation infrastructure that connected isolated frontier communities to the wider world. Death Valley in the 1870s. 20 mule team wagons began hauling borax across the Great Basin Desert to the nearest railroad. The route was 165 miles, and not only did the mules and 2 horses pull 9 tons of borax, but a supply wagon and 1,200 gallons of water to keep the livestock alive and pulling. Outlaw Bill Longley being caught in 1878. Longley boasted that he'd killed 32 men in gunfights. The truth is, Longley killed a fraction of that number, and most of his victims were murdered. Luther Yellowstone Kelly was a typical frontier scout who served as chief of scouts for General Nelson A. Miles. This early career photograph reveals him to be as photogenic and stage-worthy as Buffalo Bill. Genuine cowboys Cottonwood Charlie, Nebo, and Nicholas Janis appear in this 1880s photograph. Nebo entered the Texas Panhandle cattle trade at age 27 in 1869 and spent 40 years driving cattle herds across New Mexico, Dakota Territory, and throughout the West before his death in Oregon in 1926. Make no mistake about this rawhide ranger. Though posed in a photographer's studio, Texas Ranger Ira A. Tin was a man fearlessly capable of standing alone during a dicey tumult, proving to be one nervy adversary throughout a number of gunfights. Chief Joseph, a Nez Perce leader who resisted the forced removal of his people from their ancestral lands. The Nez Perce War of 1877 and the Nez Perce's 1,200-mile march in an attempt to reach Canada were unsuccessful. But they did result in making Chief Joseph one of the most famous of all Indian chiefs. This 1891 photo shows the Grand Bathhouse in Hot Springs, South Dakota. Built to take advantage of local hot springs, the building attracted visitors seeking health and relaxation. Gus, a gunman-turned-Selman scout, worked for Arizona cattle baron Henry Clay Hooker. His lawless exploits during the Lincoln County War underscore the era's blurred lines between outlaw and mercenary.